Good morning, everyone. We're going to start here in about 1 more minute, right at 11:15, but we appreciate you for joining us today. All right. Again, welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our Design Intelligence webinar with Dave Francis. A few housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded. And if you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A pane on the top right side of your screen. We're going to have a dedicated question and answer session at the end of today's session. And as you exit today, there will be a brief survey, about 2 to 3 questions, really quick. And we would just appreciate any feedback we can get. So with that, Dave, I will let you take it away.
All right, thank you, Danielle. Let me get over to my screen here. So today I'm going to discuss some new features in NX 2506 and how they're going to bring us into the next generation with improving our CAD flows, CAD workflows. There are, of course, a lot of enhancements with each version of NX, and I'm really only going to focus on some of the most impactful ones that will help out with the design workflow. So that's going to be my focus today. If we did all of the enhancements, it'd probably take 2 hours, and we don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the first couple of 3 slides or so. These features are only going to be available in the cloud licensed version of NX, which is referred to as NXX rather than the on-premise licensed version of NX. And then after these first 3 slides, everything going forward will be available in both versions. So let's start off with these features. The first one I'm going to talk about is Copilot. And Copilot is an exciting new AI tool that provides a chat interface for you to ask natural language questions. And it has access to in-depth knowledge and industry best practices, which makes it a great tool for new users that are learning NX. But it can also be very helpful for experienced users that are looking to learn new functionality, because it can provide step-by-step instructions with relevant links to help documentation and the commands. Notice in my graphic here, there's a little icon to the right of the search text box. You click on that, it's going to launch the Copilot panel, and you can ask it a question. And notice in my example here, I asked it, how can I hollow a solid body? Perhaps I didn't know that the terminology in NX was shell, but Copilot understood what I was asking, and it came back with the shell command and gave me some step-by-step instructions, along with a link to the command where I can launch it, and also some little balloons so you can see that would launch the help documentation for a deeper dive into information there. So I'm going to turn off my camera just so it doesn't get distracted. Okay, so the next feature we have here is collaboration. And for this one, you can collaborate with other users that are working on the same part, file, or assembly. For example, I've opened up an assembly here that a colleague has already checked out in Team Center, and an avatar displays right in the ribbon bar next to that search text box. This displays a little balloon, and if you click on that, you're going to get a contact card for that person. So I can see here that my colleague Patrick also has this assembly file checked out, and I can also see that I can also see a little link here where I can initiate a group chat with him. So I can say, you know, this is going to launch in Microsoft Teams, and that we can chat about the assembly that we have open. So I just want to reiterate there that to use this feature, you're going to be in the cloud licensed NXX product, and you would also be using Teamcenter so that you both, Teamcenter is going to track that interaction. So now going forward here, this is where all the features I'm going to talk about are going to be available both in NX, the on-premise licensed model, or NXX, the cloud license model. So regardless of what you have here, you're going to be able to take advantage of these tools. Now, the use of AI in artificial intelligence in NX continues to evolve. We previously saw the use of machine learning to predict commands and objects to select. And with this current release 2506, we have 3 new operations that use machine learning. The first one is called select similar components, which identifies and selects geometrically similar components in an assembly. The matching components will then be listed in a dialog here for you to review in case you need to add some additional ones, remove some that may have been inadvertently selected or whatever. And once you click OK, you're going to have all those components selected, and then you can perform additional operations. You know, for example, you could hide them, something like that. This is a great alternative to using, say, component filters. If you have a large assembly that didn't have any component filters set up yet, this is a great tool to go in and interrogate the assembly and find components you're looking for, maybe to clean up the view and so forth. And in a similar manner, if you're at the part level, there are also commands to select similar faces or select similar edges, and this is based on the shape, size, and topology that of those edges or faces that you're selecting. You can set the scope to work part only, entire assembly, work part, and components, or specified parts. And you can fine tune that selection. There's a little slider there. That way you can define it to select more loosely, to match more loosely or more precisely. And then again, once you complete this, click OK, you're going to have all those faces or edges selected, and you can perform additional operations at that point. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch over to NX so that we can take a quick peek at these products, these features. So I'm going to start off with this model here, and notice up here the little icon next to the search text box. That's the Copilot. It's got a little star symbol, which has kind of become the a standard for a lot of AI products out there. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up a panel that I can interact with. And I'm going to go ahead and ask it a question. And say, for instance, I am curious. I heard about Performance Predictor, but I don't know how to use it. Let's see if I can, to analyze this body. I could probably leave the misspellings in there. It'll probably understand me okay. But so I'm going to ask it. I'm curious. I'm an experienced user, but I've never used Performance Predictor, and in reality, I have a little bit. But I think this is a great tool for just learning new things. And it's going to think for a second. It's going to come back with some results, and it's given me a nice little step-by-step outline what I need to do. Create an analysis study, define the analysis body. There's my link, and it says turn on Performance Predictor. So clicking on that, I'm actually turning on the application. I didn't have it on previously, and it's queued me up to go ahead and define an analysis. I'm going to go ahead and do a linear statics case here. We'll just run through this real quick. Nothing too in depth here, but if I go back over to my step-by-step here, my next step is set some constraints and loads. I've got my Performance Predictor Navigator up here, and so I can use this to kind of walk through doing this and trying this feature out for the first time. And I'm just going to create some fixed constraints on these little screw bosses here. And then the next thing, I got that checked off, so we'll create a load. And I'm not gonna, in reality, I'm gonna do, you probably want to do more than what I'm doing here, but I'm just gonna select one face and define a load, a bearing load on that face, and click OK. And Performance Predictor will actually go ahead and start the analysis. You can see their analysis in progress, but I can go over here to my Copilot and just continue following these instructions down down the list here. And here are my balloons where I could, for instance, click on one of these to go to the link in the help documentation to take a deeper dive into what this feature is all about. Okay, so that's a little quick preview of Performance Predictor. It's a neat tool. You should check it out. It's really designed to help people do some analysis on the fly to improve their design process. And this is where you normally go to activate that application. So let me get out of that. We'll go to Assembly Navigator. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch over to another model. Find it here. I'm going to close out my Copilot window now. We're done with him. And so I got this assembly here. So now let's talk about the select enhancements here. So I'm going to go to Selection, Action, More. Here's our new commands: select similar components, select similar faces and edges. So with this large assembly, I'm going to select similar components. And what it does is it de-emphasizes the entire model until I make a selection about what I want to try to match. So I think logically, I'm going to select a fastener. And if you notice, what it's done here is it's using that emphasis to show what I have selected. I've got looks like 5 fastener types, different sizes selected, and that's pretty good. You know, I could go ahead and review to see if there's anything I'm missing, but once I select OK, it has all those components selected, and you know, logically, let me just go ahead and hide it. This is going to be a great way to clean up a large assembly of some unwanted parts that maybe you don't have filters to find for. Oops, let me select that again, and let's just do another one. We'll grab one of these little linkages here. There's 3 different sizes, and it's selected all of those. And we'll hide those as well. Okay, let's go to another part here. We're going to go down to the part level. And in this case, I have a unparameterized solid body. So maybe it was imported from another CAD software or something like that. I don't have features to rely on. I think this is a great way then to use the select similar faces command. Let's just grab one of these planar faces with a couple holes in it. And in this case, you're going to go down here and click on search. So it's going to search for any matches, and it's using some tags like you get in the HD3D application. Okay, so you can see that it's matched several faces that have 2 holes in it. They're roughly that shape. If I were to use my slider here and dial it up, now I've got 2 exact matches of these 2 faces. Let's try something different. I'm going to reset the dialog and start over. And we're going to go in here to holes on the side of the flange. I'm just going to select one of these chamfer faces here and I click on search. And I get all kinds of chamfer faces on holes all over. But let's look what happens when I dial it up to 100%. I got exact matches on either side of the model. So that makes sense. Let me go ahead and select those. Now I've got all these chamfer faces selected. And since this is a unparameterized solid body, if I wanted to make a change here, I'm going to go to synchronous modeling, and I'm going to click on resize chamfer, and it's recognized what those what the chamfer faces are currently, 1.5 millimeters. Let's change that to 1 millimeter and make that change. So I think that's going to save a lot of time, especially with these, if you have unparameterized solid bodies, to go in and find different faces, different edges that are going to be similar. So I think that's a pretty cool enhancement with 2506. Let me switch back over to my presentation here. So we're going to move on to curve creation. There's a lot of enhancements in curve creation. It is really kind of a small overhaul. And this is a direct result of customer requests. So, you know, if you're a consistent NX user, be sure to make requests on enhancements you want to see with the product. They listen. And this is a great set of enhancements with curve creation. So starting off, you're going to notice that when you're in the curve creation mode, the cursor is going to change to a little pencil icon to indicate your drawing. And there's also a little handle that displays right at the end of your cursor, which is where the endpoint of your curve that you're creating is. And there's a little sphere there. And when you're not snapping to anything, it's going to display as red. They call it red. It almost looks like orange to me, but maybe I'm colorblind there. And when you get close to, say, a line, it's going to want to snap to that line, and it's going to indicate it by changing that sphere to a yellow color. And if I'm snapping to a point, it's going to change to a green color. So in those cases, you're going to have a point on curve constraint added automatically, or a coincident constraint added as well. And if you notice too, while you're creating a line, it's going to display that dimension while you're in creation mode. So that's kind of neat as well. So then the big change here is that there used to be a profile command, and that profile command was how you started off with creating a profile. But now what they've done is, regardless of whether you launched line or arc, you're going to be in that chain mode automatically. So it's going to look and feel just like the profile command. So the profile has just become obsolete, no longer needed. The other cool thing is that they gave the hotkey letter Z to the line command. So that was the hotkey previously for profiles. So it's going to look and feel just like you did before. You go into a sketch, you hit Z, you're off and running, creating a sketch profile, and you're in the chain mode. So you have this nice pop-up menu where you can switch in between. You have a lot of tools where you can break the chain. You can lock the length or the angle of a line, or lock the radius of an arc. Some other cool things here is that you can create reference geometry on the fly. Previously, we had to create a curve, and if we wanted it to be a reference curve, you'd then select it and convert it to a reference curve afterwards, and you no longer need to do that. Pretty nice to be able to do that on the fly, and they took it a step further. They added the ability to add an infinite line, which is a reference line. That's kind of neat, because if you created a reference curve, you would have to constrain it just like everything else to get to a fully defined sketch. And with an infinite line, you don't need any constraints in the endpoints. It's infinite. So you still probably need one for the angle, but that's a pretty neat enhancement as well. Let me go ahead and advance here. So while you're creating a profile, anytime that you see an alignment preview with the dotted line, you can actually lock it by either middle clicking the middle mouse button, MB2, or pausing it for 3 seconds. And my little animation here, when it gets locked, you get a little like phantom line to indicate you're in locked mode. Okay. And the other thing that what you can do is you can actually break that by shaking your mouse, or middle clicking again to break the alignment. And I kind of jumped the gun in there in my second animation, but the other thing you can do while in the context of creating curves is that you can actually create a trim. And let me back up and create that. Let me play that animation again. And you do this by first breaking the chain, then you're going to click on and scribble over the curve that you want to trim. And trimming was also another operation that you kind of had to do after the fact, after you created the curves. So if you need to do a trim, you can do it right there on the fly. So, okay. And then there's also 3 new creation methods. starting with a line from midpoint, where you can define the midpoint first, and then you define an endpoint, which is then going to define the length of line. And in a similar manner, we have arc from center. You're going to create the arc by defining the center, an endpoint, a second endpoint, and thus defining the radius of that arc. And then rectangle from center is going to be very similar, right, to line from endpoint. You're going to start off by doing the line from endpoint, and it's actually going to create a reference line there. And then you're going to create a second dimension to define that rectangle. So some nice new curve creation methods. And I'm going to jump back over to NX just to show you what this looks and feels like inside of NX, if in case you haven't had a chance yet. So we're going to go in and just create a quick sketch. I'm not going to create anything fancy here. I'm just going to kind of give you a little tour. Up here, profile is gone, but we have line. There's a new hotkey, line from midpoint. That's new. Arc from center, and then rectangle from center. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my Z hotkey. I didn't mention this in my slide, but in addition to the right-click menu, we also have a dialog that displays. They're pretty much identical, right? If you just go down the list, you got break, chain, etc. The big difference is that with my pop-up menu, I can switch between an arc and a line, and then the dialog changes as well. So I don't really use the dialog. That's just me. I like to rely on the pop-up menus, but it's there in case you need it. So notice that my cursor is a pencil. I've got that little sphere. Go over here to line, and it's going to want to snap to it, right? And it's going to change to yellow. If I'm over a point, there's my little green, so I'm going to go ahead and select on that. And now I'm previewing that curve I'm creating. I've got the dimension displaying with it. Again, anytime I can go up and activate my pop-up menu, lock the length. Okay, I could lock the angle. Let's go ahead and create that. And notice with the lock angle, it's actually went ahead and said, well, if you wanted that locked down, we're going to go ahead and create that dimension for you. So that's kind of neat. So let me go ahead and create another line here. And at some point, if you want to, we can change to an arc. Now, if it's not like previewing the way you want, a big tip here is move your pencil cursor right through that, right through the endpoint there, and you can kind of get it to preview the way you want. But if it doesn't, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and create your second point, and you can correct it by placing your when you create the arcs. So now I've got a tangency, so let's go ahead and create that. I'm still in the mode for creating an arc, but I can switch over to line. Okay. And right there, if you notice, I've got my tangency preview with that little slash through the end of the last curve. If I pause for 3 seconds, there it's locked. Now it shows a little phantom line to show that it's locked, but it's not really creating that. I'm still creating the line that I'm previewing here, right? So I'm just go ahead and create that. And there it's locked, but if I can shake it, I can break that locking, right? Okay. Now here is the create reference curve. Okay, it's going to preview as a reference curve, and I can turn that off. And let's just take a quick peek at that infinite line. There's my infinite line. Now there's 3 different modes. There's by default the segment only, meaning I'm creating the line that I'm previewing, or I can create the line and the infinite line, or I can create just the infinite line. Okay, so all right, so I think that's that pretty much covers it. We're going to do that. Looks like it tried to infer something there, almost parallel. Ignore that. Okay. Get out of the sketch here, and I'll swing back over to my presentation. Patterns. So there's a new axial layout that's available for the pattern feature, pattern geometry, and pattern face commands. What this does is it allows you to define a pattern using both an angular and axial direction. This can be cylindrical, or conical. When it's conical, you're just going to define a half angle for that cone. And then you have the distance between instances that can be measured either along the axis or along the angle. Okay, and I think the graphic there is very helpful, I think, for understanding what that is. And there's also a stagger option. So I'm going to demonstrate that here in a second. And the last thing I'll mention with this is that the reference pattern layout supports this new axial layout. So let's go ahead and swing back over to NX. Let's take a look here. Now I have a simple conical kind of basket thing here. What I did is I extruded a profile from the XZ plane outward and cut a little cut out there. So let's just go ahead and create a pattern feature of that. Let me reset my window here so you can see what I'm doing to define this. I'm going to select my feature pattern. There's my new axial layout. And let's go and define the axis, rotation axis. Okay, and we're going to do a count of 24, 15 degrees in between. And then we're going to go down here with the axial direction. We're going to do 10 and 45. It's going the wrong direction, so we'll reverse that. Now it's going as a cylinder currently, so what we need to do is add that half angle for the cone. Now I'm a big fan of using expressions, so I have an expression set up already when I defined this feature, and I named it half angle so I could remember it. And when you start to type, you can select that that expression. And that way we have a nice parametric link. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that. There's the result there. I have one more example here. In this case, what I did, rather than extruding outward from the XZ plane, I actually created this little tool solid from a plane that's tangent to the cone, to the conical face. So in this case, we're going to use pattern geometry. Okay, so slightly different situation. I'm going to go ahead and select my extrusion, and we'll select axial vector. We'll click on that axis there. And in this case, I do want 12, but we're going to go a pitch of 30 to go all the way around. And I know I'm going to need to reverse my axis direction. And then we go down and we'll do 8 and 50. Now they're overlapping, and I did that on purpose because let's stagger them. Okay, so I'm going to go down here to pattern settings and expand that, and I have a stagger option to be either by angle or axial, and I want to do angle. And I think you can see where I'm going with this. And let's go ahead and, I think I forgot to put in my half angle. There we go. I did that as expression as well. So there we go. That looks better. Okay, so now I think you know where we're going with this. We're going to subtract all these tool solids from our solid body. Okay, and then we end up with I think, a much cooler looking basket than my previous design. So, okay, let's go back over to our presentation here. Just a couple more things. The through curve mesh feature now has the split output along boundary curves option, which was previously added to other surfacing commands in the last release, such as through curves. In case you missed what this addition is, activating this option splits the resulting surface at the endpoints of every boundary curve, whether the curves are cross curves in that case or primary curves here. And this is going to provide better G1 continuity between the split faces. Again, this is just kind of getting everything on the same page with the other surfacing commands that had this option added previously. Another useful one for assemblies, if you have suppressed components in an assembly, you can now right-click on those and open them in a new window. Right-click either the suppressed component, and you'll notice an open and window command, or if applicable, an open and parent window with any parent assemblies. And opening the component or parent assembly will leave that component suppressed in the top assemblies. So that's kind of the key thing here, is that again, you get into all that. You don't want to have to go in and fully load everything, because that takes time. So this is another useful tool to keep in your back pocket with large assemblies. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I did want to point out that both the PMI and drafting applications have several authoring enhancements that improve the workflow and increase the compliancy with international standards. For example, with feature control frame, parentheses support, basic modifier, and a datum translation symbol have been added. And with the surface finish symbol, aerial surface texture has been added. Datum target, there are format settings to define decimal places. The delimiter is either a period or a comma, and show the leading or trailing zeros. You can right-click GD&T objects to make the stub perpendicular, or to edit the annotation plane. And these are just a few of the enhancements for PMI and drafting. There are, of course, a lot more enhancements for not only PMI and drafting, but there's other modeling enhancements. There's even a few sheet metal ones. I think if you do sheet metal, the one I would check out is with flat patterns. They've done some nice enhancements there to interface with PMI. So I'd highly encourage you to go to the support site at Siemens and look up the What's New documentation for more details. There's just too many to cover in a short amount of time, but I really wanted to kind of cover what I think are going to have the most impact for designers out there. So with that, I guess we're going to open it up to questions, Danielle.
Yes, thank you.
Formal part of my presentation. So.
We do have a few questions. So the first one, if I encounter an error, can I ask Copilot about it?
If you encounter an error, yeah, absolutely. Copilot does, we'll look at that error that you get. Just give us some details about the error that you're getting, and it'll give you some, it'll tell you more about what that error means, and will provide some steps on how to resolve it. It may actually ask you for some more information for context. You can also ask Copilot some follow-up questions. Remember that it's a conversational tool, so you can have a conversation with it. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Our next question is, does the assembly collaboration feature only work in Teamcenter Essentials?
Okay, some clarification there. It works in other deployments of Teamcenter, but the key thing is that it is using Teamcenter to track who else has the assembly or part files open. And I also want to clarify that this is for the NXX cloud license product as well. So if you can use NXX without the Teamcenter application, and if you did that and you had assembly open, you wouldn't have that collaboration ability. But really, that's kind of the best of everything. If you have Teamcenter, you have NXX, you can do that collaboration piece. That's kind of neat. So
that is neat. And the last question that I see for now is, can the axial pattern layout be used for a shape that is not a cylinder or a cone?
That's a really interesting question. It could be just about any shape really, but I think it'd have to be a shape that made sense for the axial layout, meaning having an angular and axial direction. Just kind of thinking off the cuff here, a hexagonal pyramid, a pyramid with 6 sides. Yeah, I think you could do that. You'd have to do, an angle of 60 degrees around, and then you'd want a conical half angle to meet that flat face of the pyramid, which I think you could actually use a measure, uh, you know, command to come up with a measurement and link it to that. It'd be kind of interesting. Um, yeah, there's probably other shapes besides a hexagonal pyramid, but something like that. I think you could use it for that. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for those answers, Dave. I appreciate you doing that Q&A. And with that, I just have a few closing comments. Again, I just want to remind everyone, please take the time to do the short survey as you exit today. It's only 2 or 3 questions, so it shouldn't take you more than maybe 30 seconds or a minute. You will be provided a recording of today's session within 24 hours. That will come from email, and we'll have any other links that we think would benefit you tied in there as well. And with that, thank you all for your time, and this webinar is now over.
All right, great. Thank you, Danielle. Let's throw my contact information up there as well. So.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone.